Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Destination Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Adam Stoker. We've got a fun show for you today. I've got a guest I'll be bringing in just a few minutes. Her name is Allison Brown, and she's from Discover Long Island. But before we bring Allison on, as many of you know, I've been starting each episode by going through some of the posts that I'm making on LinkedIn in the industry and seeing what generates the most conversation. And when it generates a conversation, I'll go in, I'll kind of build it into a monologue to start an episode. And the one that got the most attention this week, well, I guess the shameless plug here for me is that I got my CDME. I'm really excited about it. And I announced that on LinkedIn this week. And that one was the one that got the most engagement, but I'm not sure it warrants an entire monologue about that specific thing. The next post that got the most interest here was I said, what's the most important challenge facing the destination marketing industry today? And I was fascinated by the answers. I had several comments, and I appreciate everybody that participated in that discussion. And I want to go through for you all what some of the responses were, because, and I think I said, what's the most important unsolved problem in the destination marketing space? That's how it was worded. And I think once you kind of put what the comments are and what the problems that were listed are, you start to recognize that there's a really interesting trend here. And so number one was actually from Carl Llewellyn, and Carl and I have been connected, and he interacts with my content on LinkedIn fairly often. And he talked about the operator readiness gap. So he said, we are bringing in traffic, or we're bringing in visitation, but the operators aren't prepared to receive it in such a way that it results in the level of experience that's needed. And when that happens, what you get is a gap in perception and experience, which means there's an expectations issue. And now we've got either a disgruntled visitor or a visitor who won't tell the story we'd like them to tell when they come to a destination. So that was one that he said. And then I had Christian Mingle, who also a great follower of the shows that I do and great LinkedIn connection. Christian said, negative resident sentiment is one of the major challenges that has yet to be solved in the destination marketing industry. He says, how do we turn skeptics into advocates? And that's another one that's really interesting to me because, man, I was expecting, attribution, marketing attribution to be one of the things that people said, or I was expecting, data and the different measurement of the different things that we're doing. I expected a lot around that because obviously we've talked about the gap between our data that we can collect and the data that our hotels collect and the issue that creates. But no, we got negative resident sentiment. Or we had Richard Kennedy who said there's no genuine local involvement. He said, are we marketing a destination that locals actually want to share? And so again, we're talking about a gap between the locals and what they want and what the visitors want and the DMO's role in that. There's another one that says, are we catering to tourists or residents? Who is the destination actually for? Residents or tourists? Another great question. And then Seth Lieber commented and he said, is marketing even the right word anymore to describe what we do? And he said, is the field keeping its best people? Because we have a labor shortage as far as people who build a career in the industry. A lot of times they'll either go to the private side or they'll leave the industry, and then that industry institutional knowledge goes with them. And there's a lot of groupthink in the industry as well that he mentioned in his post. And then we also had somebody mention that there's a real issue with stakeholder box checking, that we're not truly providing a great experience for our visitors. Instead, we're checking boxes. And I would actually define that a little bit like focusing on outputs instead of outcomes. And I think there's a big difference between those two things. And so the common thread that I gathered in these questions, again, like none of these were marketing challenges that haven't been solved. I guess there's some ancillary marketing challenges, but for the most part, we're talking about community challenges. And at least from the small focus group of what I had respond to my LinkedIn post, The things that people are dealing with is challenges within the community that deal with what's the destination's role, what's the dynamic and relationship between a destination and its stakeholders, a destination and its residents. And I really feel like what this kind of boils down to for me is one of the main challenges in destination marketing today is we have not successfully built the required coalitions that are required in order to truly leave a lasting impact on a destination and create real relevance as opposed to the illusion of relevance. And until we build those coalitions and actually have multiple organizations, including economic development, city leadership, business stakeholders, and the DMO, if we're not all on the same page, this disconnect between the DMO, the residents, the stakeholders, political stakeholders, is going to consistently cause problems. And from what it sounds like to me, we have to solve the community problems first, and then we'll deal with the marketing issues from there. So with that, I'd love to welcome in my new friend, Allison Brown from Discover Long Island. Allison, really appreciate you joining me, and would love to kind of hear your reaction to what the responses were on my question of what's the most important unsolved problem in the destination marketing industry today.
I think they've really hit it right on the head. And I remember, hearing this at Marcom when you were there, about what is the biggest challenge that we are facing today in the industry. And I think advocacy is the big key word, but it's transitioned from just understanding the advocacy of talking to your local stakeholders and your local politicians to advocacy of your entire region should understand what you do and should benefit from it. So I really couldn't agree more with how the industry is definitely taking another transitional shift in how we're going from that CVB to a DMO to what are we now?
Yeah, and such a great question. I mean, I'd love to ask you, Allison, what are we now?
I think there's for right now, I don't have the actual answer of what that name is. Maybe I can coin that term and we could trademark that. But I think where we are now is just to give you an example of I've been with Discover Long Island now for about 4 years, and I have seen a major shift in how we're approaching our marketing initiatives. And so we started going from the regional to the national and now to the international. And that's all well and good and wonderful and fun for me as a marketer. But we were missing the baseline of our own community and them understanding who we are and what we do and how they can be part of what we do. And what I mean by that is Long Island is a really interesting region. For those who don't know Long Island, it's made up of Suffolk and Nassau counties is Long Island, but then it also has, interestingly enough, the boroughs of Queens and Brooklyn, which are part of New York City on Long Island. So we are extremely close to New York City, and therefore our number one visitor is New York City. So it really is important that we were giving kind of that local feel when we're going and talking to the tri-state region, the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. But what we were not doing is we weren't telling our own community, this is what you have right in your own backyard, that we are here on Long Island. And I think what the locals didn't understand is that we're here for them just as much as we are for the visitors. So my job is twofold. My job is to bring in the outside visitation to help the economic impact, to help that engine run, to help businesses in slow periods, to fill that shoulder season in that weekday period. But then the other side of the coin, and I think this is where the industry is starting to realize that we're not just destination marketing organizations where we're going out and bringing people in, that we have a mission and an obligation to talk to our own constituents and say, we are here for you. And someone who's born and raised on Long Island, I've moved all around and came back to where I love, couldn't agree more with the sense of we are now changing how we are positioning ourselves in the marketplace, and that we are not just a marketing organization to bring in outside help, but we are also here as a community service and support to let people know what they can do in their own backyards. There's a reason we all live here, and we love being here. And we're now transitioning that into how do we speak to our local community so that they can understand and take the full effect of the work that we do.
Yeah. And I want to get more into that because I think you've done some really interesting things in Long Island, and you may have one of the most diverse set of needs from a community that anyone in the country has, because in Queens, a resident's needs are very different than the Hamptons, right? And so you guys have a lot to keep track of. But before we get too much into that, I'd love to have you just give us your background, Allison, and how you ended up at Discover Long Island.
Sure. Well, I graduated from Hofstra University and in marketing. Irony was I was originally going to be an anthropology major until I realized that I could do two things. I could teach or I could go in DIC. Not things that I wanted. So in books, it sounded great, not in real life. And I slowly made my way into the world of business, and then got into my first advertising and marketing class, and I just fell in love. And I think that my background in where my education came from was helpful as I create my strategies, because I really do try to understand the people as I'm creating these campaigns. But from there, I started at Gray Global, Gray Advertising, and was there for a couple of years. I then transitioned over. I've created my own agency. I've worked for product placement companies. I spent 4 years with NYC and Company, which is now NYC Tourism and Conventions, on their marketing side. And that was interesting because that was during the transition of CVB to DMO. And spent a couple of years working for some larger, more privatized luxury brands, and then found my way into Discover Long Island. I was looking to come back and work on Long Island. And the first question that they asked on the application was, what makes you perfect for the role? And the answer for me was, where do I start? Born and raised, work for, I know the CVB world and I know the DMO world, and I love where I live and I love where I play. So I think that I was like, I'm ready to love where I work too. So that's really where I came from. And I came here about 4 years ago. And it's been a real thrill to see our team grow pretty much 50 to 75% since I've been here.
Wow.
And we're just really growing leaps and bounds, and we really are changing the culture of what our DMO is in the industry right now, and I love it.
I love that. So let's dig in then a little bit to Long Island, and I know I kind of teased and you mentioned it too, that you've got even Queens as part of the destination. We could talk for the entire episode about what makes Long Island unique, but give us the general overview of, like, when we think about what is Long Island. Some people might think the Hamptons, some people might think downtown New York, or not Manhattan, but down Queens and all that area. How would you define something that's got such a disparate set of assets as one individual brand?
Yeah, so Long Island is interesting, and that's why we consider ourselves a region and not an island. So don't ever tell somebody from Queens or Brooklyn that they're on Long Island. They are in New York City. There is a very big divide in how that is thought and played, which is really interesting. So we focus on the actual proper part of Long Island, which is Suffolk and Nassau. We have, I believe, enough people that if we were actually our own city, we would be, I think, fourth or fifth in the nation.
Wow.
We have no true mayor. We have executive legislators. So we have one for Suffolk. We have one for Nassau. And within there, we have about 126 different hamlets, part of bigger towns. Those have mayors and chambers of commerce. And so keeping a track of 126 unique areas and regions within Long Island is definitely a challenge every day, making sure that we're not just focusing on the Hamptons or Montauk, that we're showing people that Northport is a great place to go because they have a walkable downtown and one of the best hotels in the country and one of the top open table restaurants. Actually, two of them are the top 100 in the nation are in Northport. We have Port Jefferson, which has the ferry that comes over from Connecticut, and it's a great area for people to go downtown. We have all of these wonderful different areas, Fire Island, Greenport, Huntington, Babylon, and every single one of them has something unique and interesting to offer. So that's where we as a company and as an organization try to come together and make sure that we are shedding light on all of these opportunities and giving everybody an equal voice. And so it definitely keeps us busy.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a blessing and a curse, right? Like the blessing is you've got an unlimited number of assets to promote, and the curse is building a cohesive brand amongst all those assets with 126 different, bosses in one sense. That's a lot to keep track of. So one of the things that you mentioned in our previous call that you started doing to make sure that your impact was felt in the community is showing up at local festivals with a mobile truck and working with news stations, getting in front of residents. Tell me about that initiative, why it came about, and how you're leveraging that unique kind of destination asset.
Sure. So we started the mobile truck back in COVID because we obviously were kind of in lockdown and we couldn't tell people to go out and experience a lot. So we were doing a show where we were having our team go out and kind of speak to those places and then kind of give a little bit of the places that you could go that were safe. So we bought a ice cream truck and we renovated it. We had a contest to name her, and her name ended up being Lily for Lili, Long Island. So she is now part of the family. We actually just downgraded from the ice cream truck as she's a little difficult to get onto some of the parkways around here that she's not allowed on. So now we have a brand new Sprinter that seats 13 people. So it's now become not only our mobile visitor station, but also on the side, it becomes also an opportunity for us to use for our fam tours. And what Lily does now that, we're obviously COVID's over and we're back out in the world, we are working with the community to find out all the great events that are happening. And we have them all in a list. And we have a great vice president of branding and innovation. And she goes out there and makes sure that the entire team is part of these activations. And what we do is we set up Lily, and we have music and games and fun, and we give inspiration guides out, and we tell everyone what's going on this weekend. We tell them how to follow social media and lots of contests. So it's really fun to see her out and about, and that people are now looking for her, and that we have a kind of a line at this point at some of these events for people to come up and, play the cornhole because they know that they might win something. And so it's really fun for the kids. It's really fun for the parents because the kids will come and play, and then the parents can find out, okay, what do I do next weekend? And we give them all that information. And a lot of times we were hearing, we had no idea. And I think that was the advocacy piece that we're missing. And now we're working on that, where people now are getting a little bit more of the understanding of who Lily is and what her mission is, and what our mission is. And so it's really just grassroots, old school guerrilla marketing, in action.
Well, and so much of marketing is storytelling, right? And we do a great job of storytelling for the visitors, but sometimes we don't do near as good of a job storytelling to our local residents. And I love that you allowed the locals to own a portion of the story of Lily by letting them name Lily and having the competition and all of that kind of stuff. Because now they have ownership when they see it around. It's like, hey, we participated in the naming of this, right? And it also sounds like, you're making a really fun experience out of it. You're kind of expanding the lifestyle. You've got the cornhole there for people to play cornhole and have those competitions. And again, it's positive sentiment and impact in the community. And I'm sorry, but if with Lily, you were bringing a TV screen out to the side and you showed a PowerPoint about all the value residents are getting from the destination marketing organization, nobody would care, right? But they feel really good when they get to participate in the fun and unique adventures that come from Lily being out in the community. And I think it's just such a great way to build connection. I personally, and this is, it's great for me to sit here and from an outside looking in, say, here's what every destination should do, right? Like, what a luxury to have that and not have to be the one responsible for making it happen. But I think every destination should have a vehicle like Lily that goes around and engages the community and helps them feel something positive related to tourism when their version of Lily goes out, because I think you're building so many bridges just by showing up and letting them feel something and the destination is attached.
Absolutely. And I think also when we arrive at these different, events, we do the research and the background on what is this? Is this an outdoor event, an indoor event? Is this for food? Is this for beachgoers? Is this for kids? What is this for? So that we can arm ourselves and how we set up our activation when we get there and how we talk to people. So one of the things that we did a couple of years ago when I just came on board was we started buying a lot of cool blue sunglasses to match our brand and chapsticks. And believe it or not, that they are almost now in demand at this point, along with our plushy little lighthouses. And the reason is that we're going to places like when we're going to the air show and we're on the boardwalk at the beach, people always forget things. And the things that they always forget are sunglasses, and they always forget their chapstick, and they always forget their things along those lines. So I
sunscreen.
So I think what we're doing is people will come up and say, "Oh, those are cool." And that gets them into the conversation of, why are you here? What do you do? So now we've got them really in our under our tent, and we're able to have that conversation. And then it's also great because then you see all of these people running around at the event with blue sunglasses on, and people will say, "Where did you get those?" And they'll come over to our booth and say, "I want those sunglasses." And we say, "All right, well, then you've got to sign up for this. You got to play the contest. You got to do the cornhole, and you got to sign up for our social media." So there's a win to all of this, because then we're engaging them even further on what we do and how they can take that back home and look at it every single day.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about in the community what Long Island does without mentioning the Long Island Tea podcast, because it is just so. I actually remember years ago, I'm good friends with Kristen Reynolds, who used to be at Discover Long Island. Now she's at Choose Chicago. And she and I talked a lot when Long Island was getting that show off the ground. And it's such a amazing version of what a destination podcast or even just community asset can and should be, because it was built around the personalities of the participants, but really stayed true to the Discover Long Island brand. And so I'd love to have you, maybe just for those that haven't heard the Long Island Tea podcast or YouTube show, to maybe share what it is, what its purpose is, and how you leverage it as a destination asset. If you have one of the templated destination websites in the destination marketing space, your website is irrelevant. If you have built your value to your stakeholders on clicks that come to your website, you are about to be irrelevant. The website issue in our space is a huge, huge problem, and we are working our way towards a cliff that's going to be very difficult to recover from for so many of the destinations who've been comfortable with a templated, glorified directory website for a long time. We've worked really hard to solve this problem. We partnered with an organization out of the UK who builds destination websites specifically, and we reimagined the destination website to actually inspire visitation, which for some reason got lost along the way. Our purpose is to inspire visitation, to create new demand. And we've gotten to the point where these websites do the exact opposite. They're just demand capturers. If somebody's already searching for a stakeholder or a business within our destination, we're capturing that intent. But the problem is our job is to create new intent, and you can only do that with a website that truly inspires people to travel. So if you know that you're one of the people that I'm talking about that has a templated website that is optimized for what we are not supposed to be responsible for, but it tells just a great story to your stakeholders, it's time to change that because that story is ending. So if you want to see what this reimagined website concept has been that we have several destinations in process with right now, hit me up, adam@thebrandrevolt.com. I'll show you what we're building. I'll show you what we have built for several destinations at this point and how we can help you get out of the templated mess of the sea of sameness and actually have a website that inspires travel. adam@thebrandrevolt.com.
So the Long Island Tea podcast is available on YouTube, and you can also download it on Spotify, Apple, all of the major, streaming podcasts. I would suggest watching it rather than listening to it, only because we have a brand new state-of-the-art studio, so you get to see the team in full action and when they're laughing and giggling. And I think one of the great things, again, Kristen Reynolds, our old CEO, she was absolutely the defining moment of putting this together with Sharon Wyman, who's our COO. And now she's gone on to Chicago and she started up a podcast there. We have continued on our podcast with Sharon, and now we've added Stacey Black, who is our vice president of strategy. And so they've really become the new tag team of what's going on. And I think the great thing about the podcast is it's a great way to have conversation starters without it feeling like a sales pitch. So they will talk about celebrity and what's happening on the Real Housewives that week, and what's going on around town and what's Billy Joel up to. And we, things along that. And we'll talk about charity, and we'll focus on the local charities and what how people can get involved. We'll talk to not local, but we will talk to different talents from Broadway to Hollywood that come to Long Island to perform. And we make, we find out through our partners when and where they're going to play, and we ask them to come on our show. So we've had some really great talent come on our show. Most recently, Matthew Morrison from Glee, and we've had Countess Llewellyn from the Housewives. We've had so many different people on. If you check out our website and our show, you'll definitely see that. But what I think is really great is when you have somebody come on the show to talk about Long Island and what they're doing, you get a different perspective than just having a blanket marketing campaign that is a one size fits all. So this is really an opportunity for our team to sit down every week and talk about what's happening in our business, what's happening in our company. Who's been promoted? Who did we hire? Where are we expanding? What activations are we doing this week? Where to find Lily? Things along those lines. Next week we'll be at the US Open, so we've been really gearing up for that, and we have a World Cup, celebration at Stony Brook University. So again, we'll be there. And these are the things that we talk to the community about and let them know, so that they can then go to the website to find all of the information. So we're kind of teasing out that information in a storytelling way, and really connecting with the locals in a way that they can understand, but then also talking to people that are interested in coming to Long Island and letting them understand how we work and how we approach Long Island, how we feel about Long Island, what is really Long Island all about, and getting to know our characteristic. And I'm proud to say that I just found out we are now in 115 different countries that have watched our show and downloaded. So we've added another 20 to the list since I last reported. And we're global on this now. And so it's really a great way to understand what Long Island's all about. And if you're looking to come visit here and some of the hot tips, but also it's really great to just be able to throw it on and as a local, listen to what's happening in your own backyard, I think.
Yeah. How many years into the show are you?
I think we are now at five years. I could be wrong.
Nice.
It'd be 6, but it's
Okay.
been before me.
Yeah. And I mean, when it started, you didn't have, and I say you, I mean the DMO, right? But you didn't have your own studio that you were doing it from, right? And so you were kind of making a space work, and it's evolved so much over time that now it does have its own studio. How important is that show to your marketing as a whole?
Very, because the way that we look at everything defined in our marketing is, there's the earned, the owned, and the paid. And while I personally handle the majority of it is the paid, everything that I do has to follow back and flow back to the website, which is under construction right now and will go live again at the end of the summer.
Awesome.
But what we're doing with all of these owned pieces and this owned media is, I think, really important in the industry right now, because it tells more of that storytelling and that real authentic feel. I can send out a digital ad and hopefully get a net of people on the website. But when you're listening to the podcast and you click through, I know that you're going to then be that person that I'm probably going to have that ongoing relationship with as somebody who's continuously coming back. So it lets us know, not only are we able to go out and market and share all of the wonders of Long Island in these different storytelling moments, whether that be the podcast or LITV, which is a segment we have on a local news channel, or if it's even our social media, which is go around leaps and bounds. And each one of the platforms on social media has its own unique thread between it. We know who our audience is on those social media channels. So we're actively creating that content in-house and going out and into market and shaping these short form videos so that we can talk to the audiences and get them, excited. One of the biggest things we had recently on social was we had a kite festival. Lily was there. We put social media behind it. It was one of the top trending pieces that we've had all year, and it really drove to our website. So it just goes to show that you can do so much with your brand without actually spending a lot of money.
I love that. And that's one of the key things, right? Is that, yes, it takes longer to build. Yes, it's probably more laborious work on the front end, right? And the talent has to be there on a consistent basis. But over the long term, it becomes a more efficient dollar spend than paid media, but it takes a while to get there. Like you can't give up on it in the first 3 to 6 months. You really got to kind of invest in it over time until it finally gets to that efficiency level. I want to pivot a little bit. Well, before I do, you've won some awards and accolades for the Long Island Tea podcast. So do you mind just sharing those and then we'll pivot?
Long Island TV just won a Tally Award. And we won a Folio Award for our podcast. We have a series that we call You Belong, and we just did season 2, and we're looking to gear that up as far as, this is one of the perfect examples of it's home storytelling of we'll focus on a local, whether it's a ferryman driver or somebody who's an artist or the couple that literally moved here from the city with no experience in being oyster farmers, and now are some of the premier oyster farmers on Long Island, and they are women, so they are breaking barriers in that as well. So we go out and we shoot these short form films and we put them together on YouTube as a series, and they had a lot of resignation of an understanding of this is the real Long Island, that, we can paint the broad picture and the broad strokes with the paid campaign. But when you really want to understand what makes Long Island so special, and it's not just from even the visitation, it's also from the economic impact of the live, work, play. We want people to come here and they want, and it starts with the visit. We all know that in this industry, it starts with the visit and then it goes through. But what we want them to do is we want them to come here again and again, and then maybe think that this is a place that I want to move to. And this is a place I want to set up my business. And this is the place that I want to retire in. And so that's where it all kind of plays in together. So that's where the You Belong series has kind of become a wonderful new piece that we've been working on. And we won a bunch of awards last year for all of our storytelling. We won a couple of tallies. We won a folio, and we were nominated. We were an honorary nominee for a Webby Award. So
Amazing.
we're really, thrilled that we are able to take this owned media and turn it into the storytelling that really breaks through those barriers when a local is not going to care so much about your print ad. It's part of the puzzle. It's part of the digital platforms and all of that. It's part of the story, but I feel like the closer you get to the actual entity of Long Island, the more storytelling does need to take the precedence over the traditional paid marketing. And I think that's a place where we are all right now with this advocacy and this storytelling that we are shifting and hopefully making the inroads for the next 10 to 20 years of what that means for our organization.
Well, and this is a good time to call back to the start of our discussion where I talked about there's a lot of destinations right now who are struggling with community relations or community engagement issues. And I'm sorry, but some of this owned content and doing things like activating Lily in your community, those are the things that break down the barriers that allow those issues to not be such a problem for Discover Long Island as they could be in other destinations. And for destinations that are struggling with that, you're going to continue to struggle with it until you start focusing some of your attention and dollars and storytelling locally. And I think you've done a great job of that through the assets that we discussed today. I'm a golf fanatic, and so we can't glaze over the fact that the U.S. Open is happening next week in your destination. How are you getting ready for it, and how do you make sure that all the attention that's on Bethpage Black next week is something that you can retain for the long term?
Well, our golf has definitely been something that we've had, kind of in our history, where we've had a lot of the championships in the past. Started last year. The Ryder Cup was the first time we had that, and that was at Bethpage Black. That was an absolute breathtaking, overwhelming, but in such a fun new way, because we had decided that we were going to put a lot of manpower and a lot of money behind it, because we believed that this was going to kind of linchpin Long Island as a golf destination and really put us on an international level. And what was great about that is that when we now have this year, we have the U.S. Open Championship, and that's at Shinnecock, which is out in the Hamptons area. It gave us a blueprint of what to do in sports marketing. And sports marketing right now is a huge buzzword, and it's definitely something that needs to be taken seriously from the small to the top. And one of the things that we knew on Long Island is we can't host a Super Bowl. We can't host, a World Series. I wish we could, host the NBA championship playoffs. We don't have that space available to compete with other bigger destinations. But what we do have, we figured out really quickly, what we do have is great golf courses. And so we started focusing on that. And it wasn't just about the Ryder Cup at the US Open, and the Ryder Cup at Bethpage. And it wasn't just about the upcoming US Open Championship at Shinnecock. It's about also threading together that when you come here, there are so many different golf courses that are premier level that you can play while you're here. So you can play on the actual Bethpage Black, one of the hardest courses. If you're not ready for that, there's 3 other courses there. It's a state park. We have a bunch of county parks that are so beautiful that you could be playing your golf game and watch sailboats go by. This is the type of world that we have readily available for visitors and locals alike to go and play. And these are open to the public, not cordoned off. That we're encouraging you now to take up that golf, right here on Long Island. And it's going to be interesting that my job from the marketing side was always the first in. So first in, first out. So I was the second we hear something, I'm the one that has to go and run and get it all done. My campaigns are up and they're almost finishing at this point. It's now the rest of the team, our wonderful communications department that's going to be working with the media and the press, and our partnerships department that's helping our partners actually get on the greens to do tastings and really showcase the life of what we have on Long Island, and bringing together all the sales teams that are helping to book all the hotel rooms, and all of the, on the social media that's out there every day, and really putting that last finishing touches on, that this is coming. Tickets are still available. Go buy now before you forget. But then all comes back to our website, so that you could then say, okay, after I've seen the US Open, now what? Not just go back to your hotel room, but this is where our job then goes back. It comes back to me to say, okay, how do we let people know after the US Open, what next? Where are you going to go? Okay, well, we can show you award-winning vineyard. We can show you award-winning downtowns and marketplaces and shopping districts and waterfronts and surfing and everything in between. And that's really where we work well together, is that it's almost passing a torch, and it's in somewhat of an Olympic way. And it starts somewhat with me, and then I pass it on to the rest of the team, and then they take it to the finish line, and then I bring it back into the very end. So it's really exciting to see how it's all coming together, and it's unbelievable that it's here next week.
Yeah, I can't wait to tune in. I most definitely will be watching it, and I'm really excited for you, because events like that are just incredible for a destination. I'd love to have, especially for destinations that are listening that have such a, I mean, they may not have exactly the diverse set of assets that you do, but there's a lot of destinations who have a lot of stories to tell. What advice could you give them on how to prioritize your initiatives and what you're doing so that you can have the impact that you desire to have?
Never underestimate the power of local pride, and the power of your local businesses and the power of your partnerships. And so if you're trying to start a new social media platform and get that growing, or if you're trying to do a storytelling series, or you want to do a podcast, I think what is really good is talk to your local constituents and find out what their thoughts are. Because when we do that, when we go out into market, we talk every quarter, we'll pick a new downtown or area, and we'll actually talk to the locals. We have mixers and things like that, and we talk to our partners. And when we do, they get really jazzed and they bring ideas to the table and say, well, I would love to do that. I would love to be a part of this. So by just opening up the conversation, you can actually find out who's willing to actually help you get down to the nitty gritty of what your strategy will be, how to start. It is a lot of work to get it started. But follow the process, trust the process, find what works for you. What works for Discover Long Island may not work for other destinations, and that's okay. I think what destinations need to do is focus on what works best for them, and take their branding and their marketing and kind of spin it into their own version of that. And it doesn't mean that you need 11 social media channels all at once. Start with one. Do the research on who's your best bet of gaining that attraction, getting it that traction, and continuously making updates. It's really important for us that we have a social media team out there doing new videos every single day, and that our podcast is shot every single week at the same time, and that our Long Island TV is out there every 2 weeks, and they have everything all buttoned up. Because the second you let your eyes kind of get off the ball, that's when it falls, and you're going to lose the audience that you've already built. And they are a wonderful bunch of followers. In fact, I think one of the most interesting things with what I do is I will have friends DM me on social and say, "Hey, I just saw this and it's really cool." And I just giggle sometimes because I say, "That's my company. That's who I work for." I said, "Finally, you understand what I do now." And it's that aha moment that like goes off at like a light bulb in their head and they understand it. And I think that's where we're really trying to take this owned content and kind of push it out to the locals so that they're like, "Oh, now I understand what Discover Long
Yeah.
Island is all about." They're not just about bringing in people. They're here to help us to lower, costs, to bring economic revenue to businesses and local moms and pops and lower taxes by helping this, engine work. So I think that once they understand it, everybody wants to play nice in the sandbox, and it's a real great community story.
Yeah. It's a double-edged sword when you get somebody that sends you something that you did and says, "Hey, we should do something like this."
It is.
Because, hey, it's great that they saw it, but at the same time, you're like, that was me.
Yes. Well, I will say though that they know that I'm on more of the marketing side, on the brand side, that I'm the one out there creating the commercials and things like that. So I don't think that they were connecting the dots of the social media because we have a social media team that does that.
Nice.
So I will not take credit for that great work. That is our social media team, and so kudos to them. But it is part of the irony of helping your community understand that you are here and you're not just a marketing agency to bring in outside people, that we are an advocacy community organization and we're here to help everyone. And it starts with the people who live here first.
Allison, I love it. This has been amazing. I really appreciate you taking the time to share your experience with us. If people want to learn more about you or Lily or some of the work that you're doing in the community, what's the best way for them to do so?
DiscoverLongIsland.com, I think, is the best place to start. You'll find all of our social handles. Obviously, you could just go on any social media. We have pretty much them all locked up. And you can Google us and find that. But it is on our website. Our podcast and our LITV are on our YouTube channel. So just look for Discover Long Island on YouTube and you'll find that. You could also just go on Spotify, Audible, all of those, and you can find us as well. But yeah, we are definitely on a renaissance movement of taking Discover Long Island to the next level at the end of this summer. And it's going to really hopefully talk to the locals and the visitors in very different ways, but also in a complete understanding of these are all things you can all do, but a local wants to look at it in a different way than a visitor. So we are working on that right now very, very diligently. And I think that just checking out our events calendar and things to do, those are the main two pieces of our website that's constantly changing, it constantly updating. And that's really where you're going to get the best information. And then if you're interested in that event or that concert or that sports opportunity, it sends you straight there. So you can even buy tickets through Ticketmaster. So we're doing all we can to help the community out and get these businesses the love that they deserve.
Fantastic. Well, I love watching what you're doing. Keep it up. It's fun for us to be able to have somebody to look up to and somebody taking the lead on so many of these things. So, Allison, thanks so much for taking the time today.
Thank you.
And thanks everybody for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode, please don't forget to leave us a rating or a review. It helps us continue to bring you amazing guests like Allison. Thanks everybody, and have a great week. Guys, I'm pretty excited. I think I've struck a nerve with something, and we've been talking a lot. You've heard on this show talking about the need for people to go from tactician to strategist. That's an effort that we've been working on inside of Brand Revolt for a long time, and one of the components of that is recognizing that the traditional agency of record engagement isn't exactly what we want to be chasing because everybody's kind of chasing the same thing. We've found a really interesting success point with conversations where I've gone to destinations and I've said, hey, what's the unique challenge that you've wanted to solve for a long time, but your AOR hasn't had the chance to get to it, or that you and your team haven't had a chance to get to it? and it's resulted in some of the most fun and intellectually challenging conversations that I've had so far. We've had one destination that's got us building a LinkedIn strategy. Another destination asked for a corporate partnerships strategy. Another one asked us to build a Reddit strategy. And in exploring these different strategies that need to be developed, especially with all the changes that are happening in the world, there's not a destination out there that doesn't have one or two things that they haven't been able to tackle yet. And for us as an organization at Brand Revolt, we really are finding a lot of joy and excitement in the opportunity to tackle some of these problems and blaze trails that haven't yet been blazed. And so I wanted to invite all of you, if there's that nagging issue, that thing you've wanted to get to for a couple of years, but you just haven't had time to solve it, or if there's something that maybe one of your directors or C-level people have been asking you to solve, but it's been on your list, you haven't been able to get to it, or maybe an agency hasn't gotten you what you needed yet with that specific thing, give us a narrow strategy project opportunity, and I'm extremely confident that my team can really help dig into that without having to turn over the keys of the entire marketing plan to this agency. Instead, we can really tackle that narrow strategy for you and make sure that it's something that's effective, solves the problem, and can be built upon for the future. If this sounds interesting to you, hit me up at adam@thebrandrevolt.com. I would love to talk to you. I know that every single destination has something like this that they just need to get to, and I think we can help. adam@thebrandrevolt.com.